Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Culture Shock, the show that's reminding you that Democrats don't know the difference between violent protesters and the peaceful ones. Guys, I am returned to Twitter. I am back, and seems like I missed a lot. Seems like I missed a whole lot. My God. I mean, it just, with all this stuff coming at you like 1,000 miles per hour, you have a shooting here, shooting there, protest here, protest there, cities on fires over here. It's just so much to keep up with. And I left Twitter a week ago, came back, and it's even worse than it was when I left. And I'm just assuming that people don't take breaks. They just go on and on and on. You know, there's a lot of other things out there, folks, besides Twitter. There's projects that can be done. I don't know, maybe if you own a house, you can do some renovations, maybe build a door. I don't know why I said build a door. I mean, it's just better than Twitter at this point, guys. But today we're not getting into all of that. I think I need a separate video to kind of talk about everything that's been happening in the world, from the new information of Jacob Blake. Then we had Kyle Rittenhouse and what happened there. And then we also go into another cop-related shooting down in my hometown of South LA, or South Central LA is what I like to call it. But the cop wasn't white. He was actually Mexican. So I don't really know how the media is going to portray that. So I guess you can say I'm waiting for more details. But today we're going to talk about the lying faces of the Democratic Party, because that's what they are. They're liars. I mean, you can't even put it like nonchalantly. Like, if the shit that comes out of Democrats' mouths they're just insane. But before we get started, guys, just like always, please like and subscribe to the channel. I've hit a milestone. I am now sitting at 301 followers. And of course, my podcast is now a thing. And so far, I have made 45 cents. So, hey, everyone has to start somewhere. And it's a lot of fun. I hope you guys do enjoy what it is we're going to be doing and discussing in the next few months or next few weeks or something like that. I don't know. I kind of lost my trail of thought there. But thank you guys for supporting the channel. Hope you guys do enjoy it. Check out the podcast every Sunday. I'm going to be doing something new called Sunday Talk, where I bring on members of my kind of circle to kind of discuss their opinions in politics, culture, and stuff like that, and how they think it's going to be affecting their lives going forward. So please tune into that. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. So without further ado, the Democratic Party. Well, I mean, there's a lot to say about the Democratic Party. I really can't like put my finger on it. But if you didn't know, I used to be a Democrat. I was a Democrat because there wasn't anything else for me to kind of vote for. I was told that I needed to be a Democrat because of the color of my skin, because I'm Black. I was never told or taught anything else but being a Democrat. It wasn't until Trump won 2016 that I started seeing the radicalism of the left and how they was just trying to destroy everything we hold dear as Americans. And it's one of those things that you kind of guess, like, well, why are they doing that? And the only answer you kind of got back was Trump is racist. And you're like, well, you're going to have to give me a little bit more than that. And no one really could give me more than that. So I started doing the research on myself. I started doing research on my own, and I started to learn that it's not about Trump. It's about how the Democrats are trying to just dismantle the American culture and American way of life. That's the way it's been portrayed, and that's the way it's been done. And they've been doing it since the birth of this country. I mean, if you look back at some of the stuff that have been implemented, they have been implemented for Democrats. I mean, you don't even have to go back as far as, you can go back as far as a few months ago. All of the cities that are on fire right now are Democrat run. That's a fact. There are no red states on fire. Florida's not on fire. I think Nevada is purple, and we're not on fire. Texas isn't on fire. All these states, Idaho's not on fire. All these states that are run by Republicans are not on fire. They're all Democrat-run cities. So when people say, oh, this is Trump's America, and it's like, well, the states and cities that are on fire are run by Democrats. So what are you really trying to say? So the Democrat Party has been trying to dismantle America for years. They have the really just unethical stake in the way the country should be run. And now they're pushing for socialism and just destroying the American dream as best as they can. And it scares me, because a lot of people are starting to fall for it too. They're starting to kind of follow the leader kind of deal. And Democrats, they only know one thing, and that is to divide. And now they're playing the racial divide. But here are a few facts for you guys. Please follow along. Fact: the Democrat Party was the party of slavery. Yes, this is true. The reason why the Civil War happened was because the Democrats, Southern Democrats to be more specific, were not in favor of abolishing slavery. Why? Because down in the South, they were getting revenue off of free labor, pretty much. So you take away the slaves, guess who's doing that work? No one. So, they were in favor of keeping slaves around. And then, going further, I was watching, and it's kind of off topic, but I was watching a documentary today by Dinesh D'souzas. If you don't know who he is, he's a political commentator, writer, and he's a naturalized American citizen, meaning he wasn't born in America. He came here from another country. I want to say India. I'm not entirely sure, but he has a documentary that I watched called Death of a Nation. Very, very, very in depth on how the political party of the Democrats relates to Nazism and how those two are related. And what's going on today, what he explained, is very relevant of what went on in Nazi Germany during the time of Hitler's rule and all that stuff. So I'll link that in the description. Hurry up and go watch it before it's gone, because it's one of those things that's not supposed to be on YouTube, because YouTube censors people for no reason. Here's another fact. Democrats were for segregation. In fact, they implemented segregation in the South. It's to a point to where America as a country, who was for certain things regarding African American, kind of turned into a regional thing, to where that was only concentrated in the South. It was only practiced in the South, the Southern Democrats. Again, Democrats were for it. They were for all this just segregating, racism. They were an offshoot of, they created the KKK, actually. And if you don't believe me, I mean, you can look all this stuff up. I'm not making this up. I learned all this stuff as I was researching the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They enacted Jim Crow. That's another big one. After slavery was abolished, Jim Crow was enacted by Southern Democrats to affect Black people. They prevented women from voting. This is another one. Now, this isn't particularly race-related, but Susan B. Anthony, who was an activist for women's rights in the early 1900s, was submitting legislation, or at least trying to get Congress to submit legislation for women to vote. But the people who refused that legislation was Democrats. It wasn't until a Republican president who sat in a chair, I don't remember the sitting president at the time, but he passed the Equal Rights Act. I think that's what it was called, where women were allowed to vote in 1920s, which 2020 is the anniversary of the Equal Rights Act. I'm hoping that's what it's called. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me, okay? And last but not least, of course, they created the KKK, because that is just one of those things that's straight ahead a fact. You can't really offshoot that. But some people come up to me and they argue, well, the Republican side and the Democrat side switch. No, they didn't. You're going to have to explain to me and give me a date and a year in which these two parties switch. And if they did switch, let's just call this out right now. Let's say you're telling the truth, and at some point in time, the Democrats and the Republicans switch parties. Democrats were still responsible for all the things I just listed: slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, preventing women's rights, and the KKK. So that doesn't change history if you're coming at me saying that they changed sides, that Democrats and Republicans changed sides. That does not make sense. You're going to have to provide me with explicit dates and years that would suggest that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party switched over, okay? Even during the DNC, nobody in the Democratic Party acknowledged the riots. They did not. It was, as I said in my previous videos, a rally against Trump. That was all it was. They did not explicitly say any type of policies, what Joe Biden planned to do when he was president. It was just the level of wokeness that I could not even begin to fathom, and the level of hatred against Trump for 4 days during prime time. You mean you have nothing else to talk about? Nothing better. See, this is when you know you're losing. Is when you when you rely on just stupid means to kind of get ahead here. Doesn't make sense to me. Nothing that the Democratic Party is selling in 2020 appeals to me. And I don't think it appeals to anybody else, because they completely ignored the riots. They ignored the people who have died. The Democratic Party don't care about the people. They never did. All they cared about was seizing power and putting a fascist state under their control. That's all it was. Someone would say fascist state. I would say more or less putting their fascist ideals on the state, because that's what they're doing. So you have people running around in masks, Antifa, you have Black Lives Matter causing trouble, destroying property. They are honestly just shot a guy for being a Trump supporter. So you have a group of people who are trying to oppress another group of people by forcible means. They say they're anti-fascist, but they're really not, because the fascism that they're trying to alleviate the people from is the very fascism that they are oppressing upon people. That doesn't make sense. All of these are off branches of the Democratic Party. There's been proof that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have started a fund to bail these Antifa members out of jail, to pay their bail fees. Bail fees? Bail out. Bail. I don't know. Their bail. Okay, that's what the funding is for. But even by this, and it just kills me, because it's as much as the Democratic Party, as much as these people preach systemic racism, they have yet to acknowledge the people who have been killed as a result of these riots. There's tons of people who have been killed, and nobody seems to really care. I'm going to go through the list for you. And it's not a matter of race here. We all know that people of ethnic backgrounds are the ones that are mostly affected by these riots. We all know it, but the Democratic Party is not going to admit it. Trump has come out and said it. The ethnic people are the ones who are greatly affected by these things. So here's a list of all the people who have been affected by these riots. And it kills me, because it's not a mix of races either. It's also a mix of just people, kids, children. So here are all the names of everyone who have been affected by the riots. And I mean by affected, that means have lost their lives. We have David Dorn, St. Louis. David McAtee, Louisville. Chris Beatty, Indianapolis. Dorian Murrell, Indianapolis. Italian Kelly, that's a pretty nice name. Davenport, Iowa. Marquise Toussaint, Davenport, Iowa. Patrick Underwood, Oakland, California. Calvin Horton Jr., Minneapolis, Minnesota. Since I don't know how to pronounce her name, but my phone does this weird thing. I don't know. Sequoia Turner, 8. This is the little girl who was shot in a Wendy's driveway by Black Lives Matter activists. Still, the media won't say this little girl's name. Devon McNeil, 11, Washington, D.C., and Leonard Legend Talaferro, 4, Tulsa, Oklahoma. These are all the people, kids, women, children, Black, white, Latino, Hispanic, have all been affected by the riots. The Democratic Party doesn't care about the people. They don't. At this point, it's by any means necessary to get Trump out of office, and it's one of those things that is still a big deal. You know, like, it's been 4 years. Like, get over it. This is why Trump will probably win a second term, is because a lot of people do not agree with the radicalism of the left. They don't agree with the riots. They don't agree with the looting and the burning down of private property or businesses. No one wants that. No one wants it, and this is why Trump is going to win. So Democratic cities are just straight up on fire right now, and everyone's blaming Trump. You have the mayor of Portland, who has just denied federal aid from President Trump because President Trump offered the aid. Does that make sense? No. The Democratic Party does not care about you, and I can't stress that enough. I can't stress that enough. Listen, folks, the Constitution was written so that this sort of nuance doesn't happen. Now, people are going back and saying that Hannah Nicole Jones' 1619 Project is when America really started. That's not true. Just get that out of your mind. In fact, what she did was an opinion piece, and people are taking it as fact. Some people even call these the 1619 riots. No. The American country, United States of America, was founded 1776 by the Declaration of Independence. And while it could be argued that the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence were not perfect, the document in itself was perfect. That document, that powerful, sacred document, is the document that has held us accountable as a country. What do I mean by that? In the Declaration of Independence, it is said that all men are created equal. Sure, while it was written at the time, slavery was still a thing. Again, the people who wrote it were not perfect, but they believed in this perfect document. That urged Abe Lincoln to look at this document and say, we as a country haven't held up our end of the bargain since slavery is still a thing. Frederick Douglass brought that to Abraham Lincoln's attention, and together, these two great men got rid of slavery. You know who was against getting rid of slavery? Democrats. Go figure. Susan B. Anthony looked at this document and said, the rights of every female American in this country is not being upheld. America has not lived up to its promise. And that document was looked at again by a Republican president. And from that day forward, women were allowed to vote. You know who was against allowing women to vote? Do I have to say it? Yes, I do. Democrats. It's a fact. Martin Luther King looked at this document and said, me as a black man in America, the government hasn't held up their end of the bargain. We do not have civil rights. And it's because of that document that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. America isn't perfect. We're just better. We're better because we have this document that holds us accountable. When the rights of American citizens are infringed upon by anybody, we look at that document and we say, oh, that's right. All men are created equal. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is what the American value system is. This is what it's based on. Democrats want to do away with the Constitution. They want to get rid of it. They want to just toss it out the window. They don't believe in our God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In fact, they believe that government should ensure and give you rights, but that's not how it works. Our rights come before law. That is one of the founding principles of this document. Going further, when Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, did you know that countries who still practice slavery followed in suit maybe 10, 20 years later and got rid of it altogether? We led the charge on that. A country who was barely out of its infancy, who practiced slavery. Yes, we did. That's one of our greatest sins of all time. But we are better as a country because we looked at ourselves and said, we couldn't have this. We can't have this. This needs to be done away with. We can't keep this around. And we did it. But Democrats want to keep you in chains, both mentally and physically. Well, guys, I hope you guys do enjoy this video. If you cannot watch the video, go check out my podcast, folks. I am really trying to get that thing off the ground. I'm trying to get it to where you guys can listen to most of my content each and every day, wherever you guys want. It's been really busy on my end, but I'm been kind of slowing down a little bit to kind of do more of these videos for you guys, because like I said, it happens at 1,000 miles per hour. All these stories and incidents, they just come at you, and I can't keep up, folks. I just cannot keep up. But check out my podcast. Every Sunday I'm starting a special Sunday talk where I'm bringing on people in my inner circle who are going to kind of give their 2 cents on what's happening within the culture and how that's affecting their professions. Some are from salesmen, some are other comic book artists, other people who just want to live as American family. So I think that'll be interesting, and I hope you guys do like it. So one last time, like, subscribe, share this video out. I'm getting a lot of great responses from you guys, and thank you for 301 subscribers. I will see you guys next time on Culture Shock, and I do hope you guys tune in next time. Enjoy yourself, folks. Adios.